And I try, man. I try, you know, in an effort to try to get us out of here in a timely fashion. I'm going to go ahead and get started. As people come in, they can come in. But just to make sure, one more time, Mr. Director, we do have a quorum, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Given the fact we have a quorum.
Dr. V was here. Where did he go?
He just walked out a second ago. I guess we'll wait a couple minutes. Well, I tell you what. We could start with the non-action items until he comes in, correct?
I'm gonna give him like 2 minutes. He may have just stepped out momentarily, so.
Okay, I think he said he had the potty, so I guess we'll give him 2 minutes.
I wasn't gonna say that out loud, but since you did.
Yeah.
Have Curtis here for item 2.
We do, but you know, if he's not here, we could also push that piece back a little bit till he gets here.
So we hold it?
I need to tell you that I'll be here till 2:15, and that's it.
That's my aim, to get you out of here before then. Well, no, I won't do that, but quickly.
Public comment.
Yes.
Nancy, is that your granddaughter?
Agenda.
That's one of my granddaughters, Audrey.
One of them?
She should be at the table. Where is she? Let's put her at the big table.
There he is. Dr. V is in the building, waiting on you, man. All right. The agenda starts with us. Call to order. Let the record show the meeting was called to order at approximately or exactly 1:34 p.m. on this good Tuesday, January 16th. We are on awards and presentations, but Commissioner Richardson, roll call.
Commissioner Barfield,
Here.
Commissioner McMillan, Commissioner Merritt, Commissioner Villavicea,
Here.
Commissioner Daly,
Here.
Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Maddox,
Me.
Commissioner Scott Maddox, Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson. Okay, thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
Nope, okay. We're good.
We are good. All right, we'll move on to now to awards and presentations. As I said before, Commissioner Richardson isn't here yet, so I'll ask for a quick agenda modification to move that further into the agenda until Commissioner Richardson gets here. Is there any objection to that modification? Seeing none, we'll show that approved. I will move on now to the consent agenda. Any motion to approve consent?
Second.
Consent's been moved by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Vice Chair Villavicea. Mr. Director?
Just a quick note on the draft public involvement plan. We've initiated the 45-day public review process that's required as part of Federal Highway, and we'll be bringing this back to you for final approval at your meeting in February.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on now to consent pool agenda items, or any pool consent agenda items? Mr. Director?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on now to roll call vote agenda items. 6A, Mr. Director.
Greg Burke will give you an overview of the requested amendment to our transportation improvement program today. And just to refresh your memory, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, members. We are proposing to amend the fiscal year 2018 to 22 TIP to reflect funding for the installation of lighting on Capitol Circle from Woodville Highway north to just south of I-10 for lighting safety improvements at signalized intersections.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion been made to approve by Commissioner Merritt, seconded by Commissioner Barfield. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Oh, I'm sorry. We have to have a roll call vote now. We'll go down the roll.
Yes, ma'am.
Aye.
Commissioner Villavicea,
Aye.
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Maddox,
Me.
Nancy's short time.
I know. Not happy.
We'll show that as passed. We'll move on now to item number 7.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or maybe this is something we might consider for the immediate future. There are 2 roads in Gaston County that we are talking about, we are looking for lights in for safety. State Road 12 and Pat Thomas Parkway, which is a road that is up for expansion and some repairs right now with some sidewalk, which is supposed to start this year. So I was looking at how or when this would be appropriate to include them in a project that we need to be looking at, because those roads are real super dark at night, and people walk on those roads from Havana to Quincy and from all along the parkway. So I was just wondering if this is the appropriate time to discuss it or to even consider it.
Mr. Director, as I understand these type of items, can we bring up at the end of the agenda at CRTPA member items?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll save that for the end of the agenda, but Mr. Director, if you can, put it in your notes for us to have that discussion at the end of the agenda. And I'll recognize you when we get done to start that conversation off again.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll move on now to item number 7, CRTPA action. Do we have any action items?
No, Mr. Chairman. Today we do a presentation on our proposed safety performance measures. Today it's just for discussion only. We'll be taking this item back through the committees and bringing you back for final approval next month.
Real quick here, Mr. Fiora. Mike? Is Mike in here? Yes. Which part of the agenda did you want to speak on, sir?
Excuse me?
Which part of the agenda did you want to speak on?
I was going to talk about that Magnolia and Appalachian Parkway intersection.
Okay, you want to speak on it at this moment?
Are you all ready for me?
No, we have citizen comment. 11.
Okay, okay. I'll tell you what, we'll wait it out.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, Greg. Okay, good. Greg's got it up there. One of the things you'll hear us talking quite a bit about over the course of the next year are performance measures. Greg, I guess you want to advance it for me, or do we have a remote that I can use, or? Yeah, this is kind of set up a little differently, but let's, yeah, we'll just start here with this one. MAP 21, which is the previous transportation legislation, mandated that state DOTs and MPOs establish performance measures on a variety of topics. The approach was that this would allow us to look at setting policy projects based on objective data and make it a data-driven process. One of the things that they harped on quite a bit was developing these cooperatively with state DOTs, and actually I'd like to commend DOT. They've actually taken a leadership role in helping us develop these performance measures, and especially providing data on the data side of it. That's a fairly intensive and expensive endeavor, so the department's agreed to take that on, and actually saves us quite a bit of money. Go ahead. They're actually, go back. I wonder if I should just do it from up there. The safety performance or performance measures that are required are safety, which is the one we'll be discussing today, as well as mobility. That deals with things like travel time delay, congestion levels, things of that nature. Those will be, that along with bridge condition and pavement condition will be due later this year. On the pavement condition and bridge condition side, a lot of that will be relying on data from DOT to help set those performance measures. The mobility, will be looking at traffic data and things like that to set some performance measures related to that. Go ahead, Craig. The safety performance measures are required for 5 areas: the number of fatalities, the rate of fatalities per 100 million miles traveled, numbers of serious injuries, and the serious injury rate, which is based on that same thing, the 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and then what are called number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Those relate to your bike and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. One of the things, we're getting a little bit ahead, go back. Yeah, the measures are calculated on a 5-year rolling average, which is required in federal law. And there are no penalties at the MPO level for not meeting those performance measurements. There are some issues or some requirements tied back to DOT and their safety funding if they do not meet those. DOT established their performance. Yes, sir.
Do they really think 0 is a realistic target
Well,
for all these
that's what we're
numbers?
about to talk about. As Commissioner Merritt noted, DOT has set a target of 0 for all 5 measures. That's consistent with what they've done in the last few years in their Towards Zero Death or Vision Zero programs they have out there. In the meantime, they've set up interim performance measures of 3,052, and these are all statewide numbers, a fatality rate of 165, a serious injury rate of 20.8, a serious injury crashes at 20,861, serious injury rate at 1106, and then 3,477 on the non-motorized. One of the things, and it's up there in that third longer bullet, Federal Highway has actually discouraged states from setting a 0 target simply because of that very measure, or thought is that it's not realistic that you're going to get to 0. And what, again, like I mentioned earlier, they're looking at something that is measurable and attainable. And, I think from a policy standpoint, we don't ever say that a traffic fatality is desirable to set a target, but I think you have to deal with the reality that you're dealing with people in their cars and you're going to have fatalities and crashes. Go ahead and just jump through these, Craig, that's fine. So what we're doing in terms of our recommended measures, develop a long-term goal towards achieving that 0 death as part of our regional mobility plan, a goal for that when we update that starting next year. What we're proposing for our 5 targets are fatalities at 56, fatality rate of 1.279, serious injury crashes at 266, crash rate at 7.313, and then non-motorized combined at 44. Those are based on that 5-year rolling average that I just mentioned, so that's why we are recommending the way they are. The other thing we wanted to take a look at is establish an ongoing process to where we can monitor crashes and especially fatalities to see if we can kind of spot early any potential hot spots or areas that we may be able to do some type of physical improvement.
And this is within the CRTPA region?
Yes, sir, off the 4-county area. And Mr. Chair, that's all I had, unless there were any
Thank you.
questions.
Any questions? This is an action item, correct?
No, sir, this is actually for just a discussion today. We'll bring it back for final action next month.
So
Okay.
it will be an action item next month.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So any questions? Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you for the update, and I think I was just scrolling back through with my agenda, and it's bouncing around a little bit, but there was a breakdown of how this compared to the actual rates in recent years and the percent, what those averages were, and the percentage decrease. And it was broken down by counties, is that right? That's the attachment
Yes,
too?
ma'am. Yeah, there was one in there, and that's one of the things that I meant to touch on and forgot to, but especially as it relates to fatalities, there's no such thing as a trend in fatalities. If you look at those numbers, I believe we were in the 70s. Let me get to them myself. I believe in like 2012, we were in the mid-70s. That number dropped to like 30 into the into the low 40s for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, I think in 2016, jumped back up to 70, 72 or 78. So that's one of the things, especially with the fatalities. There never seems to be any rhyme or reason, and one of the things, when you think about trying to improve that, you're looking, are there on the ground improvements we can make, things like that, and typically that doesn't occur unless you have an area that suddenly develops. You get a trend of crashes in a particular area related to line of sight, things like that. It's just really, on the fatality side especially, difficult to control that number, and I think that's the reason Federal Highway had mentioned what they did about, not having a 0 target for something like that.
So I guess my question, Mr. Chair, is that I was a little confused by this because on that attachment 2, and that I think that's helpful. Great, you're right. We need improvements in order to see numbers go down, but it's not apples to apples. You're not going to have the same injury every year at the same intersection or something like that, or hopefully you wouldn't. But if I'm reading this right, the 5-year average from 11 to 16 for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries is 44, or the serious injury crashes is 266. Go back up to our targets for 18, and you've got 44 and 266 in that list. So I'm wondering, it's not a target that is trying to reduce those numbers at this point. It's just taking the average and putting that average in. I read that correctly.
Right.
Okay.
And really, too, 2018 is supposed to serve as our baseline.
Got it.
And then
Okay.
from that point on, we'll start looking at, what the trends are. But I will tell you now, it's going to be hit or miss. I mean, there'll be years they go up and years they go down. That's one of the reasons I actually like the crash rate a little better. It's a bit more stable, but again, the 5 that we propose are the 5 that we're required to have.
And this, again, is state mandates this for performance measures, and are the MPO, are we supposed to try to meet that goal or have a hands-on part in it, or?
Well, it's a federal requirement, but that's, the way they look at it is when we do our long-range plans or our TIPs, there should be projects in the long-range plan or the TIP that attempt to address that particular, to help us meet that target.
So this may be, next time we come up with a new long-term plan, one of the metrics may be, does it improve safety?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, that was along the same lines as my next question, that if.
Did you do it?
Yeah, you did. That if 18 is a baseline now, we're starting this. It just, I think the notion that it was performance measures made it sound like we were having a target this year. So that makes sense. And forgive me, Mr. Chair, for being late. Thank you.
It's all good. All right. Any other questions? This is not an action item, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Commissioner Richardson, welcome to the meeting, my man. We moved it back in the meeting because we wanted to recognize you for your leadership over the past year. I believe we have a small token of our appreciation if you want to come up.
Speech?
I don't know, I can.
It's a trip to Hawaii.
Commissioner Miller said it's a trip to Hawaii.
I'm not sure you want to go there.
It was.
There's plenty of good skiing up north.
You know, I don't know what they gave you when you were in the legislature, if you ever chaired a committee, but around here,
They didn't give us anything.
we give you a nice shiny award. This is to recognize Commissioner Richardson for his year of service as CRTPA chairman. We were proud to have you, and thank you for leading us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I add to that? Please. Yeah, okay. Well, I wrote a few things out.
No, Betsy.
Betsy's the official speech giver.
Oh, she is.
I think it's embellished, Betsy.
Very animated.
So, well, now look, we're gonna need y'all to use a microphone. Wow. No, you gotta use the mic.
Do we need to do the microphone?
Of course you do. I want everybody else to hear it.
All right. And I just want to expound on what our chair has said. I just have a sweet relationship with you, Curtis Richardson, and just wanted to say that you bring a regional leadership to us through your work with the state legislature, the schools that you work with, Leon County, you've done work with them, and you've also done work with, of course, the city of Tallahassee. And we watch you work, and you do a super, super good job. And certainly, you leading our organization for the last year has been great. You've been a gentleman. You have affected your leadership in a very gentle voice, and that's very nice to have nowadays with all of the dust-ups that we have throughout. But you've been very focused on our agenda and making sure that we march through that agenda. Some of your accomplishments, we created an executive committee this year, and I think that that is working very well with us, and we appreciate you helping us march through that. We tweaked our bylaws and for the better, and then we also beefed up our association with our state association. Commissioner Maddox, Chair Maddox, is the one that takes care of that for us, and I know that we've been working closely with Carl. What's his last name?
Just say Carl.
Okay,
Just,
thank you.
yeah, everybody knows what you're talking about. Say Coral.
Yeah.
And on a personal note, you have a beautiful wife, and Mr. Richardson, he is raising 2 beautiful girls, and they're going to do really well. And I've got to experience that when I took your pictures a couple of years ago, and it was just amazing, and they are going to succeed in life. And we thank you for your leadership and appreciate the year that you've helped guide us through. So that's all I wanted to add.
Much better than Nick.
I couldn't have done a better job myself.
Yeah, showing up. So,
And if you
need an excellent photographer, this is
Oh, yes.
Thank
So I'd like to entertain a motion that Betsy always gives out the awards.
Already covered that, Mr. Chairman, a couple meetings.
I had no idea it wasn't an official part of the record. Somebody told me. Thank you for not telling me.
I'm just helping you.
No, that's really good. I appreciate it.
Nice job.
No, really good job. All right, so now back on the agenda. Agenda item number 8, FDOT report. What you got for us?
Commissioner Daley had requested an update on the improvement project at US 27 and Talpico Road. It's an intersection improvement project, installation of a light. The project is currently the right-of-way has been certified. It's going through then the final review process. Somebody goes back over and makes sure everything's correct, the legal and so forth. Once that has been finalized, which should be within the next few weeks, the right-of-way acquisition will begin. That can take up to 18 months or a little bit more if there are any challenges in court. Therefore, we have set a letting date of December of 2019 to ensure that we have adequate time to complete that process. Should we find an opportunity to advance this project before then, we will. We understand it's on the community's radar. It's very important to you. And I will keep you updated once that right-of-way acquisition process has actually begun. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Suzanne, could you give us an update on that South Adams Street project?
The Complete Streets project?
The crossing, pedestrian crossing.
The Adams, okay.
Post office.
The construction's begun on that.
Oh.
Okay, so the construction has begun, and we've been coordinating with Star Metro to actually move that bus stop a little further away, and I think we should see that project completed within the next few months.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
Anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Any other requests or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Executive Director report. Mr. Director?
Mr. Chairman, a few items here. Just want to give you an update on the Southwest Area Plan. We kicked that off, as we talked about at our last meeting, the data collection phase of that. We were going to start a public involvement process with that as well, but seeing the decision that was made by the IA regarding the airport gateway in December, we've decided to hold off the overall public involvement on that for a couple more months. We have been setting up stakeholder meetings with, I believe we have one tomorrow with FSU. We've had one with the school board, looking to get with the schools as well. So that project is moving along, though the public involvement, we've kind of tapped the brakes a little bit to let the airport gateway project kind of finish up. And once that does, we'll go out and do some public engagement ourselves. We were the one of 2 lucky selectees, and I'll use that term loosely, to get audited by DOT's Office of Inspector General. We met with them last week. They're looking more so on the DOT side of the fence, but they wanted to review 2 MPOs in the state as to how we're managing the new contract that was put in place in May of 2016. So
Is it selected at random or because we're in Tallahassee?
I think it's a combination of the two. Something along the line was referenced in regards to travel budgets. The other one was Lee County in South Florida. But I actually had a really good meeting with them last Thursday, I believe. And it seems like it's very much a collaborative process, but it's just more seeing how the department's managing the MPO program and then how that contract in particular is being handled. And Suzanne, if you want to add anything.
I will also say, actually, the Inspector General is doing an audit of our Office of Policy Planning. So this is just one piece of the office of that whole program of policy planning. And then since we are the first department to put a new contract and a new processes in place that were actually recommended by the State Department of Finance, you're looking at us as the test case. So that's another reason why they chose to do this audit. It's very much focused on the programmatic and the adjunct as the fiscal. Thank you.
The other item I want to talk about, I passed out to you today a draft of House Bill 575. This was introduced by Representative Beshears back in, I think, mid-November. It did not have a companion bill in the Senate till the last couple of weeks. but this is actually dealing with some changes to the governing boards of MPOs. In particular, they've divided them up into two categories here, over $500,000 and less than $500,000, which we would fall into that category. It would limit MPOs less than $500,000 to a governing board of a total of 11 folks, or 11 people. As it's listed today or out there today, it also would limit 2 4-year terms to any governing board member. I actually had a meeting with Representative Beshears this morning. It seems like that is going to go to a 12-year term on a particular MPO. And I believe really the biggest impact on us as the board is structured today would be the loss of the weighted voting. That's actually one of the provisions that he put in there, that an MPO cannot have a weighted voting structure.
I mean, me and Betsy get, Dr. V get more beef,
Mm-hmm.
right?
One person, one vote. Like I said, there was a companion bill introduced in the Senate in the last couple of weeks. I don't believe it has made it to a committee hearing yet. This has gone through 2 committee hearings. It's scheduled to, or excuse me, it's on the calendar to go to the Governmental Oversight Committee on the House, but it has not been on the calendar as of yet. But we are monitoring along with Carl McKiska from the MPOAC. So I at least wanted to bring you up to date on that and see if anyone had any questions regarding
Out
it.
of curiosity, if it did pass, would the term limits, I guess they wouldn't apply as you sit today? I can't say, Kristen, you're fired because you've already been here 8 years, so therefore it would start in effect the day the law got adopted.
It's not clear. That's one of the things, and talking to Carl as well this morning, that's something I believe they're going to try to clarify as to when that date would start in terms of someone being on the clock.
You probably need to understand that some of these, it's hard to find somebody even willing to do this.
Right.
So-
And that was part of the
Say they can't.
conversation. That's part of the conversation I had with the representative this morning, is all boards, or all elected, officials have lots of different boards they're on. I said, to get someone interested in transportation, we'd like to try to hang on them as long as possible. His counter was that if you've got somebody that wants to be on there but can't because somebody won't get off. So there's merits both ways.
We have a lot of those over the city.
Wait,
That's a real problem.
Commissioner Miller, followed by Commissioner Dozier.
I didn't hear that.
I said we have a big problem with that over the city, that we
People
won't
don't
get
wanna get
off,
off.
and because the others want to be on.
They're
So
clamoring to be on.
Commissioner Miller,
my question was
use that mic for me.
who is actually on the CRTPA now? What is I know I don't ever worry about it except for to make sure the city's covered, but I don't have any idea. So could you share that?
Right, yeah, there's 3 with Leon County, 3 with the city of Tallahassee, 1 from Gadsden, Jefferson, Leon, and then a representative for the municipalities
I think there are 2 from
of
Gadsden.
Gadsden County, as well as the school boards.
2 from Gadsden.
2 from Gadsden.
2 from Gadsden, yeah.
And can we still have ARPC?
Chris is a non-voting member.
Okay.
We have hundreds of those.
Yeah.
I see.
Daniel McMillan. There's a county representative, and then Commissioner McMillan represents the 5 cities.
Right. Anything else, Commissioner?
That's good. Thank you.
Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you. Our Florida Regional Planning Council Association, or Regional Council Association, I got that right, Chris. We met on Friday, representatives from around the state, all the planning councils, and this bill was in our legislative update at that time. So I'm glad you're bringing it up, Greg. I had a question about it as well, and thanks for the copy of the bill. I guess my 2 questions really stem from not hearing about this before, not hearing about concerns at our board necessarily, and Representative Beshears representing a good part of our area, wondering if from Jefferson, Wakulla, or Gaston, if any of you had heard about these concerns coming from your areas or had talked to the representative about this. I'm, seeing some shaking heads, I'm not sure. So that would be one question. But then also, there was a question raised at our board meeting about whether or not this, the weighted voting could be changed by the state legislature, or if that was a federal requirement. And I have that right, Chris? Okay. So there were some questions about how this melds with the federal requirements for MPOs. And perhaps that is what's going to be worked through as they move through committees. So those were kind of two questions. I'll just tack on to that I think it would be great to have even more representation, more cities from, our surrounding counties. Obviously, we are a unique MPO in the state. That's been my understanding. So maybe this is a fix reacting to something in our area that others may not face. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. If we want more representation, more conversation, that'd be fantastic. But as you all have already said, it's hard to, we've seen attrition in the last few years. We've gotten down to a good working board here. But some people, unlike all of us, really, aren't crazy about the transportation. No offense, Greg. So we all really want to be here, right?
Heard it before.
So I'm trying to wrap my mind around this, because if there's an issue, perhaps we could address it internally or something else. But I wasn't sure if any of you have heard any of issues from your counties.
Commissioner Barfield?
Yes, I did have a conversation with Representative Bashirs about this because Mr. Slay teed me up about it. And basically what he said was he was concerned about the rural counties were not getting the representation that he felt like that they should. And that certainly could have been an issue before we narrowed down our board. And I did mention that to him, and he knew all about that. But he represents something like 12, 16 small rural counties. So when he took a look around at what he was seeing, he noticed that those small counties weren't getting their lion's share of what should be given to them.
Most of Halsey County aren't even in an MPO.
Yes.
We talked about this at the Regional Planning Council about trying to form a pseudo MPO for the small counties. Right now, they just have an outreach program, I think.
Right.
And they really don't have a lot of influence on their long-term or five-year plans.
Yeah, well, that's what I said to him, and that was his conversation with me, was that he just wants to make sure that the smaller counties have representation. And surprisingly, Jefferson and Wakulla are in, particularly Jefferson, in an MPO. And that was a huge push for us to be part of the MPO.
We're really small counties.
Yeah, because we're 16,000. So anyway, that's where that came from. And he wasn't trying to step on toes. He was just looking out for us small counties.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that. Thank you. And I think I raised it last meeting. I'm not sure if you were here, Chris, but our discussion at the board meeting about the rural MPO and hoping that CRTPA can work with that MPO should it be formed or yes, something like an MPO. I know there are other rules there. So perhaps that would be good to convey back to Representative Bashir if that were to move forward with ARPC.
Fan of the Planning Council.
Got it. Okay.
On point to Commissioner Dozier's comments and Commissioner Barfield's comments, one, I hope that our rural counties feel represented and adequately represented on this board. Yeah. And then the second part is there any kind of legislation or any kind of rules that, one MPO has to be so far away from another one? Considering the fact that you're talking about this rural MPO, could they create that rural MPO and be as close to us as they would be?
Yeah, I mean, the ones, I'm not aware of any in the state of Florida, but most of them, they're called rural TPOs and various things, but they all tend to function similar to the way we do.
Okay.
Going back to Commissioner Dozier's initial question, there's nothing in federal regs that dictate weighted voting or anything like that. That's usually the choice of the MPO. I know we have it. I know Volusia County has it. There's probably one or two more, but those are the two that I'm aware of that have it. In terms of this bill, really, none of us saw it coming until it popped up, like I said, mid-November. We weren't really sure what was going on with it, but it did get a companion from Senator Perry out of Gainesville in the last couple of weeks.
Is it identical?
I believe so, yes, sir.
I wasn't around back in the day, but why was it weighted voting started in the first place? I don't know if anybody's been on this.
I am going to turn around and look directly at Jack and have Jack talk about that, since Jack was here and Jack was the architect of the weighted voting.
Was it a conflict when the small counties came on, or somebody worried about something? Or?
We struggled for about 3 to 6 months trying to come up with a solution to that, and the solution, and we were talking with the department central office, and there was really no clear solution that was amenable to everybody.
A solution to what problem?
To the voting, how that was going to work when we introduced new members to the board. So what we did was we said, well, based on population, you really can't argue with that. So when McCullough County represents 8% of the board, population-wise, then that's 8%. So that's the way that it was initiated from probably about 2004 onward.
I understand.
Just based on population.
Commissioner Dozier?
Jack, was it based on population? I guess, I'm not sure if I got this in a briefing a long time ago or not, but it was the amount of money coming in and how much proportionally is spent, not dictate. It wasn't anything about that. It's
No,
not
it should have
dictating.
been just the straight up,
It
I
was
would assume the 2010.
Simply population
Just
of
based on,
Leon
strictly on
and
census
Tallahassee.
population in Tallahassee and Leon counties, from the initiation of this MPO like 40 or 50 years ago, started as a 50-50 member. So whatever population is in Tallahassee and Leon County collectively, those were always split in half. And it wasn't even really a decision or a discussion. It was 50-50 for that based on the representative population of the overall four-county area.
Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I recall correctly, there was a time that I personally had the impression that the voting before the reorganization was done was actually skewed to the larger county city, especially since Leon County is the only county with one city, and then all of the other counties have multiple municipalities. And I think that was one of the arguments, if I recall correctly, when I first got on this board, that also led to the reorg to reduce with, I don't know, maybe that's what led to it, but then the reorganization is done and the numbers in this board has been reduced since then. So I really don't know what the genesis of that was, but that was the impression I had when I first started on this board 4 years ago, that there was a disproportionate allocation of votes to the smaller counties relative to the bigger county, since only one vote comes from each of the other counties, and one vote and a municipality vote comes from Gaston County, and all of the other votes come from Leon and the city of Tallahassee. That was my impression. So now I'm beginning to learn it's not actually what it was, maybe something before I even got here that led to the reorg. So let's keep on doing what we're doing. I also did not know or hear anything about this bill until I just browsed it today. I did not get an inkling of what was coming in regards to this. And you can see here already that the municipality representation from Gaston County, Daniel McMillan, I think he was supposed to be here for a year, and that ended in December. So now we're going to have a hard time getting another municipality to come, just like after Dolores left, we were not able, we found it hard to get a municipality representation from Gaston County. So now that we have one, the term of 1 year has taken him out. Now, how do we get the other vote? It's something that they are still working on, because the county cannot tell the municipality how to go about determining who represents them on the CRTPA. So I don't know how this is going to work with those, with my situation, my county situation, where we have diverse municipalities that will have to determine who represent them on the board. For the county, that is known, it's one. But the municipalities, the way things are done there to determine who comes becomes an issue.
As I remember, I think us reducing the number of board members wasn't necessarily a conflict of the way votes were going or weighted votes. I think it was more of making sure that we had a good attendance and quorum on all sides, and so we didn't change much. We didn't change at all the weight. It just changed the number from each board to make sure that we were able to achieve a quorum. Without having, because I think for us, Leon County, I think we may have had all 7 people on the board, and it just wasn't working out for us at all. And so this works better for us. But the question I had was, and I'm going to recognize you, as you want to say a few words, but is this bill, because it doesn't seem like it, aside from the change in weight, it doesn't seem like it affects much of what we do here at all. Is this something that we want to have maybe, since it is more related to a small county, or his reasoning is more related to small counties, a representative from one of our small counties, maybe Commissioner Barfield, since she's already started the dialogue with our representative to start maybe reaching out to him and trying to influence against something that would be something that if we're going to do it, that we would be amenable to, or is it just kind of something we want to keep our eye on?
I think at this point, we want to keep our eye on it. When I met with him today, he briefly mentioned about the smaller counties, but his issue seemed to be more so, he felt from a philosophical perspective, I guess, that smaller boards tend to be more effective than larger boards. One of the statistics he quoted me was the average size of the boards over $500,000 are like 15, and the ones under were 11. So that lines up with what he put in the bill in terms of maximum number of members. Okay. And going back real quick to Commissioner Villalobos's comment, Commissioner Villalobos, I thought they changed it to 2 years because we were going to write a letter suggesting they do that, and then I never wrote the letter because I recall a conversation with Daniel, they had changed it to 2 years. But I will follow up with him to make sure I'm remembering that correctly.
Because I just had the, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I just had the conversation with someone here a few minutes ago about it being a year, that the 1 year term is not even enough for any member of this board to understand the language and what is going on. So I wish and I hope they change it to more than 1 year term for the municipalities. And if they have been doing that, if they have decided or discussed that, then that will be very good, because
I'll follow up.
that will give them some time to learn and then some time to really talk the language. Because it took me a couple of years to even begin to understand the lingo of MPOAC.
I agree. Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Merritt.
I'm
Chair.
sorry, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson, I'm sorry.
Just to follow up on Dr. Villalobos's comment, the question that I had is if Commissioner McDaniel's term is up, how are they notified? And if it is up, shouldn't we notify them earlier so that they can begin the process of, and even if it is the 2 year term, we still will have that question. How are they notified, and then how far in advance do we notify them so that they can begin the process of selecting a replacement?
I would have to go back and double check the bylaws, but ultimately it's up to them. I don't think we notify them, but I will follow back up and see if we should have sent something out. If we were supposed to, then that was on me. I did not do that. But I think they're responsible for providing their membership.
Okay.
If I'm, can I make follow up on that? My recollection is that the municipalities couldn't decide amongst themselves who they wanted to serve. Doris Madison was representing Midway and did a really good job of that, and that's when they decided that they would do every year rotating through the 5. When I had an opportunity to talk to all of them in a group, and I said that really 1 year is horrible for anybody to serve on this board and then rotate off, and begged them to find somebody that would be stable for 4 years. And then and they said, well, maybe we could do 2 years, and that's what they were working on. But it's an local thing between them. Personally, I think they should circulate every 4 years. A new commissioner comes on, then they serve that, and then they serve to the next. But that's not my county.
What color municipalities are represented through the county?
No, but theirs is bigger than ours. We only have
Much
one.
longer, though.
Yeah,
All right, now I got Commissioner Dozier in queue, but if this on point, let's make the point.
So with Gaston County, if you all noticed, when Commissioner Delores from Midway was not reelected, we had a problem with different municipality commissioners showing up. There were actually some time that 2 showed up here as representative of the municipality. So it's an issue with them working together. There are some municipalities that really want to do it. There are some that really don't care to do it. So they are having problem, I think, with harmonizing the term that each municipality should represent the municipalities on this board. And when we read the bylaw, the county cannot tell the municipalities how to determine who represents them. So it's left to them to decide. And they are still working on it. So my understanding was it was a one-year automatic rotation that they have agreed on how it will rotate from one municipality to another representation. That was my understanding. And I thought it was 2 years for the rotation. Then I heard recently that it's 1 year. And I'm hearing Commissioner Barfi saying she suggested to them for 4 years. And so if it's 4 years and their re-election is staggered, and the one on this board, their term is up for re-election and they happen not to succeed. So how do we compensate or make up for the other year? Does that mean the municipalities come together to decide on who now takes the remainder of the year and then to complete their 4 years? So I don't know how it's going to be worked out. And I think this is still work in progress. And if this board can reach out to the municipalities and suggest to them as to how to and what will be more effective in their contribution to the discussion, then I think we need to do that so that we didn't know how exactly. But 1 year is not enough. I will tell you that right now. Macmillan, he knows, because he just sits here because he does not really understand what is being said. He's a very articulate young man. So 1 year is not even enough for anything. So I think we need to see what we can do with them for 2 years, at least.
Who makes the determination of those terms, how long they are, rotation? Is that made?
The 5 municipalities.
Right. So really we have no control over that at all. Okay. I think before we had this conversation, I think we may even have made suggestions to them, or maybe sent a letter of suggestions to them on how we thought they should go about it, and this is what they came up with. I mean, I guess we could try another, but it sounds like it's going to be a more in-depth conversation than what we have here to talk about. Maybe if anybody wanted to have an agenda item to speak specifically on what kind of suggested recommendations we can make to them, I would entertain that motion. But I mean, we can't take action on it right now anyway, unless somebody wanted me as chair to write a letter asking them to consider maybe a 4-year or something like that, and even that would be out of order. But I don't think there's much we can do except for make suggestions.
You're right.
And I would employ those folks in that area, I guess Commissioner V, to maybe reach out to them and just tell them that we want them to be represented, but at the same time, they have to make decisions on how they're going to be represented and make sure that decision is the most efficient way to make sure that somebody is able to get to this meeting, not only get to the meeting, but understand what's going on. And that does take more than 1 year. It took me more than 1 year for sure to figure out what was going on. And then after that point, after I figured out what's going on, I wanted to figure out how I could use what I knew to impact what was going on. So that's another learning curve there. So maybe agenda item, if not agenda item, maybe a letter, if not a letter, and maybe just we can just have this conversation, ask Dr. V to go back and speak with those municipalities on how they want to move forward. Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I make one more comment about the bill and the legislative agenda, on this point, since we do just have recommendations, I'm wondering if a letter on behalf of you and our executive director, the chair and our executive director, might be a nice complement to any outreach Dr. V does within those municipalities. To the point about the learning curve in 4 years or 2 years, maybe suggesting that, we welcome a longer term, that it could be 2 years, could be 4 years. And if the board was interested, I would add one more suggestion to that. It's something that the Innovation Park Board uses. We have, for the universities and TCC, a designee and an alternate. Yeah. There's only one vote. Right. So if it was Havana's turn and they had a designee, the next city in line, should that be Midway, that person could serve as an alternate, but also attend meetings without voting and start to get some education in that piece. So that may be an option they want to consider, and then some municipality in Gadsden is always represented should the current appointee, I don't even know if this would work, but since it's their choice on how to do that, I wonder if a designee and an alternate might help alleviate some of that pressure, since it is hard to find representatives. So I would welcome the three of you, our Gaston County rep, but the chair and the ED, sending a letter laying out some options and really framing it as this board welcomes and wants participation from the municipalities in Gadsden.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
real quick.
And
I think,
On
if
point.
you don't know, on point. I think what I might do today is also a commission meeting at 6 o'clock. During the commissioner's comment, I am going to raise this very concern from the county's point of view, and I'm probably going to ask staff, the county administrator, to work on scheduling a meeting with all the municipalities, mayors. Maybe in that meeting, then the CRTPA, the executive director or the chair, could come and talk with them on these suggestions, that any one of these ones that we want to adopt, and let it be a conversation. And so the city managers are going to be the one going back, or the mayors are going to be the one going back to their commission to say, this is what has been decided, this is how we can have a voice in the conversation, and let them adopt what really works for them. And I think that would be a very good alternative choice for us to do. So thank you very much for being interested in getting Gaston County fully involved.
All right, Commissioner Dozier, let's get back in queue. Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Merritt, Commissioner Barfield. Commissioner Dozier, your second part.
Just really quick, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the discussion about the bill, and still have some confusion about whether or not it'll actually solve the problem that's been articulated. If the MPOAC or others wanted to lean in, or any of our counties on a legislature, I would suggest making it easier, and I'm kind of speaking out of turn here because, Chris, you're working through the specifics on this, make it easier for us to support and create regional transportation planning organizations. I think any of it, I mean, it is a regional issue. That's why, we raised it a couple meetings ago, or the last meeting, that working with our partners who are not covered by an MPO to east or west of us, but specifically to the west, would be in our interest. It's the Big Bend region. So if MPOAC or anyone had an idea of kind of an alternative approach to this, and talking with Representative Beshears on that, I would say make it easier and have the state actually support in a more robust way the creation of regional transportation planning organizations.
Real quick on that point, and Chris may be aware of this, I know DOT is doing some work now with Sherry Coven's group. They're doing I guess I would call it a statewide study, but they're looking at the potential to establish some RTPOs. I don't know how detailed they're going to go into it, if it's going to result in legislation or anything like that, but I know it is something the department is taking a look at.
And we met with Tommy Barfield about that a couple of years ago, and they didn't, tepid response at best.
Commissioner Merritt, you got the floor.
All right, and this is probably not going to be a surprise coming from me, but I just assume get rid of the weighted voting, personally, where I had the same vote. We got 3 counties, I'd have the vote of 1/3 of Leon County. That would resolve that and take a preemptive strike on it, and we're done.
We don't have a quorum.
No, I know. I'm not going to make a motion right now. I just didn't know what everybody thought about it, or I think it was probably done back in the day, because, here comes Wakulla County, and let's, we don't want to give them, maybe it wasn't done like that. We want to make sure we're the ones that actually make the decision. You're welcome on our board, but we're going to actually make the decision. And I don't think it's actually turned out like that. I don't think there's been any controversy between anybody, but I just assume we are the ones that always show up at the meetings, right? Easier to get a quorum.
Mr. Chair, on point on that?
On point.
If we had, I don't know if you're suggesting, Commissioner Merritt, one representative from Leon or one representative from City of
No,
Tallahassee.
it's just a vote for a vote, no vote.
Yeah, one member, one vote. I think that's personally worthy of discussion. It might be easier on our staff to do that as well. But I think tracking this, but even taking action during session or reviewing an agenda item
We're one of the
That'd
few
be
MPOs that you say even have weighted votes, right?
There are, I know of two, like I said, I think.
Are there other MPOs that are like ours with a big county than the smaller satellite counties? Or is it like that because of we have?
HRTPO.
Most, what's that?
HRTPO.
Yeah, but they're so new. The Heartland, that's like a 9-county. Most of the ones I can think of that are coming to mind, the counties are, I won't say equally urban, but much closer in population than what we are
Well, we
here.
are all in a symbiotic relationship,
Sure,
of course,
sure.
with work and
Actually-
where people live and.
Just a quick.
Actually, but we do still have a quorum because Commissioner Richards, you weren't here at the beginning. Commissioner Miller left, so we do still have a quorum, actually.
All right. The way the law is proposed, or the bill is proposed, in essence, the board structure would remain pretty much the same as it is right now, other than the weighted voting.
Well, I'll make a
because
motion,
it's-
then we change our laws to have one member, one vote.
You got to put it on the agenda,
Yeah,
don't you?
I think something like
We
that,
had a
because we need to rewrite the bylaws.
I'll make a
and
motion, we
everything
put it on the agenda for next meeting.
For discussion, yeah.
No,
Vote.
vote.
Is there a second?
It's good. Second.
Motion to agenda, the way to vote has been made by Commissioner Merritt. To show some kind of unity, I'm going to give Commissioner Dozier a second. All those in favor of agendaing that item indicate by saying aye.
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 Are any opposed? Motion carries without objection. We'll agenda it for next meeting.
Question, do you want me to go ahead and take a stab at rewriting the bylaws to accommodate that, or do you just want to have the discussion and then come back and, because it's going to take a rewriting of the bylaws?
I think I would probably like to see some draft language in the bylaws.
And then
Any
also-
objection to that? Yeah,
No.
Commissioner Richards?
Yeah, it's good, but if that's what it's going to
Yeah.
take.
We can
Yeah.
just direct staff to bring back some amendatory language to the bylaws and then
Right.
take that.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Because we also have to amend the interlocal agreement as well. That's
Bring back
the
all that
more
language.
time-consuming part, because that's got to go back out to everybody. And I think to stage this, we would need to talk about, you all make a decision, that's the direction you want to go. We'd need to rewrite the interlocal agreement, get that signed off on, and then come back
I think it's only
as a
fair
second
to us
stage.
small
and-
guys.
and
So,
do,
so when we just say that motion was for you to get, for staff to get ready, what it would take, all the paperwork it would take for us to move in that direction. So we're just turnkey, just if it passes, we can get that paperwork done, and then the next meeting be in a position where we're one vote, one member.
Yep. Okay.
Agreed?
Yep.
You get that? Yep. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
want to
Commissioner
go back
Barfield.
to the last point in Gadsden County. As Jefferson County is, I'm the representative for Monticello, and perhaps they can roll that one vote into your, the confidence of the person that sits there in Gadsden County. After all, like myself, I represent Monticello also, and you being a county commissioner, you represent all 5 of those municipalities in some of the decisions that you make. I know that's probably not going to fly, but that certainly could be one of the solutions to the problem that Gadsden County is having. Because right now, they need to understand that it's ineffective for the small counties and for Gadsden County not to have somebody seated at your right voting. So, anyway, that's my thought.
Could they designate Dr. V as their person, or do they have to actually have someone
Again,
on it?
that we would have to amend the interlocal agreement.
Yeah.
And interlocal agreement first, then bylaws.
I mean, I agree, if they would be willing to do that. 5 cities is like herding cats, trying to figure
I'll
out.
tell you what, let's take up that weighted vote first. And then, maybe during that meeting,
Yeah, you guys can have that discussion.
yeah, we got a discussion then. School board member Wood, you have
Well-
the floor.
It's just a little confusing because if you
Okay,
look at the
I'm making
voting
sure.
power of the school board member, I think it's 1%. I think that's what it is. So, I guess I'm the only school board member, and it's Leon County, but y'all don't have a school board member on here. So I just think about that in this whole process of where does that fit in?
As I see it, I don't think there's any real big objection right now sitting at this board of us moving towards one member, one vote. I think it's just something that, since we've been on the board anyway, I think it's something that we just kind of did and didn't really think about, but,
Makes you feel part of the team.
whatever it takes.
And that's actually, I didn't think about that until Ms. Wood said that.
The bus people, they
The way the bill is written,
Caltrans.
the board membership from the municipalities and the counties is based on population. It does not address the school board, because I think technically we wouldn't be, if we kept the structure we had right now, one person, one vote, we wouldn't be able to add any more school boards, because that would put us over the 11 cap. So that's
That's fine.
an interesting point. Well, but I guess it's something that we actually may need to follow up with the
You know, you
representative's
could-
office.
you could have,
because that actually,
Yeah.
that creates.
You could have a non-voting school board
Commissioner Dozier?
person that, you know, that way you're not depending on me for your quorum, so I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Commissioner Dozier?
One last comment on this. I think that it would behoove us to have, I like the discussion, the bylaws, have everything teed up for the next discussion, but particularly for City Commission and Leon County, I think articulating what the discussion has been here at the board, particularly for the county administrator and city manager, that might be helpful. There may be, I'm not saying that they would necessarily push back on this, but there may be some question as to why we got to this place. And the fact that the city and county folks who are in this room for Tallahassee, Leon support this decision may be important in doing some outreach to the administrator and the manager. To lay the groundwork, because those interlocals have to go back to the full boards.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And that's actually that's the time-consuming part. So
Right.
that's why I mentioned if you were to decide to do this, we need to amend the interlocal, take that out, get it signed off on, and then come back and do a bylaw update to reflect that as well.
So does, I like your posture, Mr. Chair, thank you. Looking at the weighted votes, if we're going to go out to do the interlocal change for the weighted votes, that would be the perfect opportunity to reflect on our municipalities and other things like that, so we don't have to repeat that process, or you all don't in the future. So we can wrap any of those other questions up in that discussion.
I think it's key, though, just real quick, I think it's key, Dr. V, that you have that conversation today at your meeting, because it would be good to have at least know how your municipalities feel about either transferring or increasing the term of those folks from the municipality that are going to serve on this board. That would, because then we could kind of get everything done at once. It's almost like a small rewrite we're doing here. So if you could make sure you bring that up at the end of the meeting, and we can have that meeting as soon as possible, I think that would help staff. Anything else on this subject? See none? All right.
A couple other items.
Director?
We took a stab at a new agenda program for this meeting, the board docs. Did anybody have any particular issues with that, or?
Any issues with board docs?
I know I'd gotten an email or a text from you about, I didn't get a chance to follow up. Was that an issue for the commissioner side, or using board docs, or?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
For the Leon County commissioners who use iAnnotate, I find board docs incredibly challenging and not worth the hassle of flipping through, and I believe the chair is nodding along with this. So we adopted a system in 2011 where all of our agendas run through a PDF format, and we can annotate them and save them. And I think we prefer, and we've heard this from other county commissioners, to have the PDF. So I think board docs specifically works for City of Tallahassee. That's their standard, but I would suggest the PDFs work better for the rest of us.
Okay.
Does anybody else use board docs besides the city?
That's purely city.
School board? So, I mean, I don't, is it a problem to send two formats?
No, I think that's what, and Greg and I were talking about this the other day. It is, I can tell you, it saved a tremendous amount of time putting the agenda together, but Greg and I talked a bit, and that's, I think, and Greg, you put out a PDF link on the website, so we may just do both. That way, like I said, it definitely, the board docs cuts a lot of time off preparing the agenda and putting it in, but I think we can throw together a PDF and put that out there.
I tell you what, when just real quick, Commissioner Dozier, I'll get the floor back to you, but when the CRA went to board docs, it's just when you get used to using a system and then you have to transition to another, it was harder for me to navigate through board docs than it is iAnnotate. So, I mean, if it's not too much time to staff, because I wouldn't want to put the city nor the school board in the same fashion where they have to then adjust to iAnnotate. So if it's sorry. So if it's not too much time for staff, if you could put it in both formats and send it to the proper entities that use that program, that would probably be best for all members involved. Commissioner Dozier?
Mr. Chair, you made the comment I did, that I think those who use board docs for multiple meetings find it an easier system, but when it was just the one CRA, we found a lot of challenges with that because we can't access it but for that one meeting. Right. So, yeah. And if other counties, there are a lot of more programs that deal with PDFs. Yeah.
I
So is
use,
this,
I annotate also.
So is this a case of old dogs and new tricks? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I think it's a case of, I think it's a case of who has more
Who
money.
has more money? I think that's what it is.
I think Commissioner Merritt is lobbying for paper over there. Might need a third format.
Did you see his computer he had up here?
I did see it. He was sharp. He
No,
was
it had
sharp.
a great picture on it, too.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, and I want to do an update on the, we had a meeting this morning with DOT regarding the Appalachia Parkway changes, but I think I want to wait for Mr. Ferreira, if he has some comments, and then we can talk about it then, so.
Any other questions for the executive director before we move on to citizen comment? You see the information there. Any questions on the information? Seeing none, we'll move on to citizen comment. Ms. Farrar? You have the floor, my man. When you get up to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike Farrar. I live at 1401 Tuccinini here in Tallahassee. And I'm a tenant in the Parkway Shopping Center, and I have been for 30 years. There's a proposal with a blueprint and FDOT to do some work on the service road out front of the center. And my concern is there's 27 entrance points into that center, and by blocking off the service road, you're going to take out 77% of access to exit safely, protected by a light on South Magnolia. The only other exit that's protected by the light is on the far western end of the shopping center at Seminole Drive, which nobody knows where that's at, and then that leaves us with an already congested entrance access point on South Magnolia, which is further going to be dampened by the blueprint sidewalk project, which is probably going to take 10 feet of right-of-way out of that road. And there's a one-slot exit onto Appalachia Parkway on the far western end of the shopping center by the Olive Garden, which means that if you're shopping in the New Leaf Market, you got to navigate all the way down to the end of the shopping center to get out. It's impossible to get out on South Magnolia, and anybody that lives in that area knows that that area is a pretty aggressive site for driving as two people in two lanes merge into one at South Magnolia. So, when you're sticking your car out in that traffic to try to get over to the left lane to go on South Magnolia, you're taking your life into your own hands. In the past 10 years, we've seen Tallahassee grow. In the last 30 years, I've seen 158 restaurants open up on the Parkway with much more convenient access points than what we have. And when I'm out in the town, people know what I do, and most of the people that say they don't come see us anymore, they say because it's a traffic issue, and it's a congestion problem. And people that live here, they know that the back roads and how to get in and out of that center. But it's amazing how much business we're getting anymore off the internet. TripAdvisor, Yelp, Google. We get a lot of business from people from out of town, and we get a lot of people from other sides of town that aren't familiar with that area. And most of you guys have been to the Parkway Shopping Center. It is a pain to get in and out of there. It's worked perfect. It worked perfect for 40 years with a stop sign on that service road with an exit off the Parkway until FDOT took that out back in 1991 or 92. That's an approximate, okay? But I can't remember of any accidents ever happening with it controlled with the stop sign. The service road there has already got a stop light there, and my concern is we could probably deal with pedestrian safety with that stoplight controlling traffic, and put a no turn on red on the proposed service road entrance into South Magnolia, and just put it all in sequence everything out to where number one, right now it flows really good because there is a light there, and how it usually works is this is going to sound like that Who's on First thing from Abbott and Costello, okay, so bear with me. But what happens is the light turns red on South Magnolia heading south and eastbound Appalachia Parkway. Well, that gives the double turn lane coming off the westbound Parkway a chance to enter into the shopping center. And a lot of times people are stuck in the middle of the road because there's a traffic jam there. All right, that light clears. Then the service road guys get a green light, and then you can safely, go on your way. Which, by the way, that light and the light on and I'm probably repeating myself here, by the dry cleaners are the only protected exits out of that shopping center. All right, and we're talking 197,000 square feet of retail with 21 businesses in it. It is 100% occupied. I have 14 petitions right here of tenants that don't want this to happen. Okay. There's probably hundreds of families. I've got 50 employees at my place. I've got 3 college students. I've got people with mortgages. I've got a mortgage. I got a family. We depend on traffic, and it's a known fact that if you inconvenience people enough, you're going to become an inconvenience. And I know that this is a rock and a hard place for you guys, but there's got to be some way we can work this out. I mean, there's just got to be, and I'm going to start repeating myself, but that's basically my concern. Is you're going to make this place untenable. I mean, there's impossible. If you guys have ever been in the shopping center in the afternoon trying to turn left at Lafayette Street in front of my store, you sit there for 5 or 10 minutes. It's impossible. And the left-hand turn lane from Crispers, that dumps into the left-hand turn lane off Lafayette. So if you cut out the 21 exits out of the front, leaving people a chance to flow out of there, you're going to put all that traffic into 2 alleys. So that's my concern. I hope I didn't go over the 3 minutes. And really appreciate you guys listening to me about this, okay?
Thanks, sir. Suzanne?
If I may make a comment about it, and let's not forget the cyclists that are all in that area. That's a huge walkable area, particularly in that Indian Head. I come to that restaurant and I shop that area, particularly the co-op in Cabo's.
Harbor Freight.
No, don't do that one. And
Harbor Freight kills it. But they don't walk there.
yeah, but I would just say that this is a local restaurant. It's very difficult to be a local restaurant in anywhere. So consideration here would be great. Madam Suzanne.
FDOT?
Thank you. And thanks a lot, you guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd just like to recap. We had a meeting this morning with Mr. Ferrara and with 2 of the property managers from Talcor. We did identify, and in attendance also was the engineer who is the project manager here for this project, as well as our safety engineer, Mike Lewis. We discussed, we listened to Mr. Ferrara's concerns. We listened to Talcor's concerns. We identified some action items, and just so you're aware, we're going to look and we're going to coordinate with our safety and signage department and see if there's anything we can do in improving signage for access and egress into the site. And I want to specifically say we are talking only Appalachia Parkway. FDOT does not have any, the roadway south of that intersection, South Magnolia and Lafayette, are county roadways. So the county, so we did encourage that they also coordinate with the county any concerns they had with that, and we would be willing to work with the county if they approached us with anything, any specific request.
So before any action is taken on that road, will the report come back to this group, or where would it go?
We'll gladly summarize the findings, and we'll work with Greg. We did intend to do that, but I just want to let you know that we identified 2 in the landscaping there. We're not in the business to take down trees to increase visibility for businesses. However, we will look at any improvements we can make with the landscaping and any landscaping projects that would still create the enhancements of landscaping, but perhaps allow for more visibility. Make sure that all clear sight triangles are protected, that everybody can see where they're going in ingress and egress. The traffic onto the service road, we're going to look at any configurations with that access in, the egress out, and then that service road, if there's anything we can do to help improve circulation. We did inform Talco, the project engineer had looked at it, and he did suggest that if you had an aisle that people could circulate through on the north side of the shopping center, it would be very helpful, because you do not have any, you have to get out on the service road and go against oncoming traffic to circulate, and they're relying on all those exits to get traffic to move around. That is somewhat dangerous, okay? I know I navigate through the parking lot, which is, again, kind of somewhat dangerous too, but not onto ongoing traffic. And then finally, the construction letting date for this project, for our intersection improvement project, is September of 2018. However, we have noted that we will not have construction begin till after January 1st of 2019, so that there would be no construction at the time of Christmas shopping. Okay, so we could go ahead and get that. So we're looking at everything that we can do to better improve ingress and egress, and we will be reporting back and coordinate to this board. But Greg, we'll be working internally, and we'd also like to work with Talcor and hopefully the property owner to see if there's some complementary work they could do with the circulation, so that we could support their businesses and support the goal of safety, which is why this project was programmed. Thank you.
What is the CRTPA's involvement in this matter?
Actually, as I understand it, this is one of the things that, and if I could speak real quick to it, and I could be totally wrong, but I'm taking it way back to we first went to our training, Commissioner Dozier. This is one of the things that we're, one of the biggest powers that we have is when FDOT and the state has projects that they're doing that we want modified a little bit or kind of object to, we can go to them and ask them, would you consider alternatives to what you're trying to do, because that actually is an impediment to what to our businesses here in Leon County. So, I mean, that's the reason I think that Suzanne is working with Greg, is because the CRTPA as a board seems like at this point that they would be objecting to the route that's being taken and asking for them to actually consider alternatives, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I asked because it sounded like we were being asked to modify our project, but in fact, we're advocating for them.
Right.
Via the DOT.
I think our original request, and I'll ask Jack or Greg, was to look at a pedestrian crossing on the east side of the intersection where there was not one. Then I think that kind of evolved as the department looked in this. And you've got a very unusual situation with the service road turns and things like that. So I think the department took another step further, looking at it more so from a, I'll say safety for lack of a better word, but I think just more of a continuity and driver expectation because that slip lane is so far, back up the roadway.
And our role is to advocate for the citizens and the business owners to try to make this a better project.
Right.
Yes. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that last point gets to a key question I had, so I really appreciate that. Going back, Mike, thanks for being here. Mike, you all may have seen, has actually showed up for 2 or 3 of our meetings now, waiting to have some comments about this, and very constructive has been, we met and working with Greg, and I appreciate all of you setting up the meeting today. I also want to mention that I have heard from other citizens in the Myers Park, Indian Head neighborhood, surrounding neighborhoods about bike ped safety in general at that intersection. I think some of those voices came to the public meeting. And Greg, I believe you talked to one person.
I talked to her earlier today.
And invited them to share some comments via email. So we may have additional comments not specific to the issues that Mike is raising about the shopping center, what we're discussing now, but in general, some questions about bike ped safety crossing that large intersection. So my first question was going to be, and again, you and the chair just, I think, clarified this, that this was something that because of the Magnolia Drive sidewalks, we started asking about a better crossing or unrelated to that, but FDOT expanded the scope of this once you dug in and looked at this intersection. Is that right?
My understanding that when we did the resurfacing project, there was also the safety and crossing that service road and then crossing Appalachian Parkway, and that it was difficult. We took the approach of looking at the entire intersection and analyzing all of the crash data. And so we looked at, there's a significant amount of crashes that have occurred there, and therefore we have a holistic solution. And this was part of the solution. And you will still have access onto South Magnolia through a signal, which actually will ensure that you have full access that's protected, because you'll be able to make that right out. It's getting the people back out onto Appalachia so that they can then use that new turn lane. So there's a couple of safety improvements we've made for ingress and egress. We're just going to see if we can even further enhance that from the shopping center onto Appalachia.
Okay.
And I think, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Greg. So my interest here, understanding now kind of how it evolved, and I really appreciate FDOT taking one aspect. There have been bike fatalities, pedestrian, there's a number of crashes there just anecdotally. I've seen a lot. I'm sure the numbers are significant. Okay. So since this was not a project that we initiated, kind of the public involvement is coming close to the end. You all did hold a public meeting, and that's great. I'm wondering if we can get an agenda item, because there is more interest in this in February, so we can see what the plans are and kind of look at some of those options. Related to that, though, we've got multimodal district. We've got, there's a lot of other things within this area, and I know that doesn't always fit with an FDOT road, but because of the improvements that city and county blueprint are doing on Magnolia, that county has done on Lafayette Street, and the businesses there, I'm not sure it's Christmas season that they may like that, but it's football season too. That may, give Mike a lot of business, right? So pushing the start date back past Christmas and football season would be really good. And these businesses have been through significant impacts the entire time Cascades was under construction, and particularly Lafayette Street. So we don't want to add another burden to them. So I'm wondering about an agenda item, just so we can look at this and hear how it's going to work with city plans and county plans in that area as well.
I think my
Is there a
only...
second to that motion?
Well,
Second.
Motion been second, moved and properly second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Greg, you had a concern about that? I'm sorry,
My
Mr.
only
Chair.
is more timing, is I don't know if we would have some of these issues resolved by next month.
Or fully analyzed by
Right,
next month,
but I would think how about this, we shoot for February, but we may have to back up till March to see what they've been able to come up with.
In fact, if
Open it up.
the multiple seconds will allow, I'll take back the February and just say as soon as you're ready to present, because moving the construction date back, I thought it was imminent as well in September. So moving the construction date back, if you want to take another month or two to get that analysis, that would be fine, just so long as we get an agenda item that we can really look at and discuss with you.
Correct. And just to emphasize, we did coordinate with the county. They were very aggressive in reaching out to us and Blueprint to try to ensure that our project was a complement to their project. I understand that your IA board is still looking at that. The door is open for them to bring back whatever the final approved design is, to see if we can accommodate that so that you don't end up tearing out anything we just put in. So that is one thing that is still on the table. The other point I wanted to make was some of them may be short-term solutions and some may be long-term, such as landscaping, So again, we're going to look at it holistically and bring in as our landscape, our safety, our design, and we recognize that these are very legitimate concerns. Thank you.
Final point, Mr. Chair. I just want to give Suzanne, you FDOT, Greg, you also back up your comment. This is an old shopping center. It has challenges of getting in and out of there that are inherent to that shopping center. And I talked to Ed Murray with Talcor about that as well. So I really appreciate your engagement with them, seeing if there's anything the property owner can do. And he had said he would carry that back. So that's a significant piece of this. We can't solve everybody's problems.
Right, and that's what we talked about today, but I will give Howard Hodge, who was the project manager, credit. He actually offered up some solutions or some suggestions to Talcor this morning. I had to leave the meeting before he got into that part, but he and I had talked, and he did have some ideas about how they could improve things within the private property side of this.
And I emphasized that they could do it without having to remove their sign and having to relocate their lighting, and that there would be the potential to still do that and still add parking. So we're very cognizant that whatever improvement we do, really don't want it to be a costly burden to the property owner. Thank you.
Anything else on the subject?
Just said, I'm probably behind the eight ball on this, even knowing what the project is, could I get with you afterwards and just, you could just explain to me quickly? I'd appreciate that. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
One thing I'll just say, I will send out a link, or the project flyer. We'll distribute that. Greg can make sure Greg has that, and then we can send that out to everybody, so you can at least have a visual of what our project is, how our design is, so that you know what we're working with. Okay, thank you.
Items from members? Mr. Director, we go back to the item brought up by Commissioner Verbisi.
Oh, I'm sorry, State Road 12. I was like, where'd my notes go? State Road 12 and Pat Thomas Parkway.
Yes, State Road 12 and State Road 267.
And that was the potential for lighting as part of the resurfacing?
We have already resurfaced and added shoulders to State Road 12. And State Road 267 is what we are about to embark on within this month. No, it's this year, real soon, with some sidewalk and some expansion. And if it's possible for us to consider the lightning, placing lights on State Road 267 along with the road project, we will surely, Gaston County will be very glad to get it right now. But if not, I am suggesting that and requesting that we consider as an immediate future project placing lights along 267 and 12. That is my request. I don't know how soon, but the sooner for us, the better, because I've actually seen citizens walk along that road, those roads at night, and those roads are pitch dark. We as a county, we're working on some other county roads where I believe that we do need some lights, and that will be something I'll be working on in our future budget to begin to place lights on those county roads. But these two roads, these are state roads, which I think FDOT need to seriously and very, very immediately look at that as a concern.
Mr. Director, could we make that request on behalf of Gaston County?
We can look at that as a potential lighting project. I can tell you the department typically does not add lighting on a resurfacing project. Those are usually projects unto themselves, but we can follow back up with Mike Lewis in the safety office. I don't know what they'll be able to do with it, but I can promise you they won't be able to do that as part of the resurfacing.
We're not even getting it for our road widening project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you just bring that back as information, whatever you get back from DOT, information at next meeting? Suzanne, you want to speak to it?
I just wanted to inform you that the project actually the TIP amendment that was approved today, those safety projects came out of central office, and central office identified the locations for the lighting. All right, there was a federal highway program, and that was managed, identified, and will be the contracts will be overseen by central office. So that is completely separate from what we would do in the district. So what I will do is take this request back, and they will do it as called a lighting justification report, and they will look at the cost benefit. I would ask you to perhaps consider if you have limits where it'd be a little more realistic for us to really focus on where there's a higher density and of population versus the entire road. There could be, because if you take the entire road and you try to do a cost benefit, it could be that the benefit is not going to be there for the cost because you've done the entire road. However, if you focused on an area where you really have a higher concentration of population or people walking, you may get to the result you're looking for. You may. I just want to be honest with you.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that. I think that is something I will take to our public work to work on that with us, and we will bring that, or there's an alternative to that.
Right.
Rather than, we can also space out the frequency of the lights to cover a whole lot more than just making them closer within the populated area and still have about the same costs. I'm not an engineer, but that's just common sense.
Right.
Okay, rather than having 5 lights for this area, we can spread it and put 5 lights in a whole lot wider expanse of space and still incur the same cost and increase safety rather than just total pitch blackness. So there are many ways, I think, as an economist, you can look at it, as an economist from my point of view, but as an engineer, that's a different ballgame.
Who's going to be paying the power bill for these lights we just adopted?
That's solar.
No, I mean, the ones we'd adopted earlier in the TIP program.
Oh, okay. Well, I think lights nowadays should be solar. No, with all that free energy coming on from everywhere. Even look at the highways. The roads are now solar powered.
We do a lot of lighting retrofit, and some of this is lighting retrofit where you already have the poles in place, and you're putting the new Cobra heads. They're all LED, so you're actually reducing the amount of electricity that you'll use. It'll be the local government.
Local government, okay. That's what's been a sticking point with us is, sure you can put lights up, you got to pay for them, though.
Okay.
But again, we will look at that, but just think about it, because again, there are going to be standards, there's going to be requirements, and I'd like to make sure that you had the most information so that we could look at what would be a realistic project and see if it was feasible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, anything else, members?
Members,
Chris, what you got for me?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly give the group a quick update. Greg had mentioned that the DOT had commissioned a study to kind of look at some of the rural counties and how they're being served or underserved as far as transportation needs. So the ARPC's board back in November voted to kind of move forward with the ARPC of exploring or working with DOT to form a rural transportation planning organization. So ARPC's region is a little bit bigger than the CRTPA. It includes the 5 counties to the west of here, which are primarily rural. And after I gave this body an update on the freight logistics zone that we worked on last year, there was a lot of momentum moving forward on how do we start to keep the ball moving with this freight logistics zone. And the suggestion was the establishment of a rural transportation, an RTPO, Rural Transportation Planning Organization, which is very similar to an MPO, but minus the federal funding. So it's more of a group that you convene, you collaborate, you establish and identify priorities among those counties. There would be 5 counties for this RTPO. Based on dialogue with DOT and understanding that they're moving forward with this commission study, we're going to probably hold off on doing anything until we hear the results of that study. There might be some recommendations coming out of there that include the formation of an RTPO. If that's so, then we wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel. So for everyone that's here and had heard the comments on the RTPO, that's what the ARPC has been involved with, and I'll certainly keep this body informed as there is some overlap between the 2 organizations.
And Chris, what would be the counties included in that?
It would be Jackson, Calhoun, and Gulf, and Liberty and Franklin, the 5 counties immediately to the west of the CRTPA.
Anything else? Commissioner Barfield.
yes, I just want to make a report on US Highway 90. I make this report because it encompasses Leon County, also the resurfacing from Leon County, Jefferson, Leon County, and almost to our courthouse. C.W. Roberts was a contractor. I live on Highway 90. They did a fabulous, fabulous job. They put in shoulders from the Leon County line to the first Jefferson County line, well, actually to Lake Miccosukee, and rave reviews because a lot of the cyclists weren't going on that section right there. And as we all know, that is a national corridor of cycling between San Francisco and St. Augustine.
Had no idea.
Oh, yes, it's huge. Lots of people have camped out in my yard. Yeah. Maybe we should talk about that. But they also completed it 2 months in advance. And just really proud of how that looks. I appreciate Florida Department of Transportation putting that money forward, watching over them. It just really is amazing, particularly those bike shoulders and that resurfacing job on Highway 90. They protected our crepe myrtle trees really well. They put in a sidewalk in Jefferson County, so now we have a sidewalk that connects Highway 90 to the courthouse all the way down to an assisted living area on US 19. So I'm just really, really, really pleased, real pleased. So thank you very much. I'm telling you, I just can't tell, just, I ride my bike on it all the time and feel pretty safe. So, thank you. And that is pretty much it.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Good job, Nick.
I try.
Wonderful job for the first day.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you know, you a pro.
Oh, man, I've done it.